It was a windy day here across the state, and we're tracking some flooding concerns as our next storm moves in. We'll talk about the chance for some rain and snow and what else we can expect tonight.
Floodwaters are taking over streets, parks, and playgrounds. We'll show you the areas that were hit the hardest.
Everyone's least favorite insect is back.
We're expecting a pretty bad mosquito season.
What flooding means for mosquitoes and how you can keep them away.
We are tracking major flooding happening in multiple spots tonight in northern Utah. Thanks for watching Fox 13 News at 9. I'm Bob Evans.
And I'm Kelly Chapman. A big trouble spot right now is on 1700 South and 1500 East in Salt Lake City. Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule is live at the scene where the community is now trying to keep the flow from encroaching on any more of the road or, of course, into their homes. Darian, we understand at least 100 homes have been evacuated.
Yeah, Kelly and Bob, I'm here near 1700 South and 1500 East, where Salt Lake City Fire say they have already evacuated at least 35 homes due to flooding. Red Cross staff and volunteers are opening an evacuation center at the church near 2215 East Roosevelt Avenue. Again, that's 2215 East Roosevelt Avenue if you need a place to go. This will be a developing situation overnight, and I don't know if you can see, but the water is coming down swiftly. I don't think I've seen anything like this in Salt Lake City or anywhere thus far this year, but this is crazy. We will keep you updated overnight as this is a developing situation, and you can keep up to date with the latest on air and online at fox13now.com. For now, I'm live in Salt Lake City. Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Darian, I know it's dark outside, so it's a little difficult for us to see with our camera view. I can see there is plenty of sandbags behind you. What are residents doing in this area? I imagine, obviously, it's a very tense time for them.
Yes, it's a very tense time. There are lots of people actually gathering around taking photos. Some are a little confused as to why the road is being blocked off. Others are talking to first responders, trying to figure out where to go and what to do and if their houses are going to be affected. I'm hoping to speak to some residents while I'm here and figure out exactly what they're being told and what their next plan of action is.
Darian, do you have any idea how much water is actually in the street?
I don't have an idea how much water is. We haven't been able to get any confirmation from first responders or police, but it looks like quite a bit. This is a steady stream of water. It's moving fast, and there's even some spots bubbling up along the side of the road. I know you don't have a great view, but it is pretty intense flooding here.
All right, Fox 13's Darian DeBrule. We will check back with you later in the newscast.
Yeah, we understand an evacuation center is currently being set up at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at 2215 East Roosevelt Avenue for anybody in that area who's feeling threatened or unsafe because of the floodwaters. That evacuation center is just opening up. Darian, we are going to keep you in place and, of course, come back and check in with you throughout the newscast. In the meantime, we've also seen flooding in areas of Ogden, Kaysville, and near Immigration Creek today. Community members all trying to get out ahead of any dangers or damage.
I tell you what, Allison, this is exactly what we have been worried about ever since we got this record-breaking snowpack.
Yes, and then we had the record heat yesterday. Where we have this flood warning right now is Immigration Creek. So this starts up down through Immigration Canyon. I just spoke with two residents who live in Immigration Canyon, and they said that what they were seeing when they were driving home tonight, some mudslides crossing the roads and just very difficult conditions. Now that, of course, runs down all the way down into the Salt Lake Valley. The concern here included in this flood warning, portions of Hogle Zoo. We don't have any reports of any problems there right now. They had their first flood drill today, and they also did sandbagging. Then it comes all the way down into the Harvard, Yale, Sugar House area, as we were just listening to Darian, at about 1500 East and 1700 South. Now, this will likely peak 10 p.m. to midnight. This is not the worst of it. The worst of it is still to come, okay? And then it is expected to gradually recede throughout Thursday. So what we're seeing so far, Bob, you were asking about what water that we're seeing in the area. The flows are at about 124 CFS right now, and that's 1 cubic foot per second is about 450 gallons per minute. So the flood flow is 126. We're about there right now at flood stage, and this does compare to a crest that happened in May of 2011. So never drive through a flooded roadway if you're seeing these areas across northern Utah or southern Utah over the next couple of days. And then, of course, you'll want to use caution when walking near any riverbanks, especially Emigration Creek tonight. We're going to have more on this throughout the hours, and of course, overnight, we're going to hopefully have a lot of safety into the overnight hours. I know it's a concern at night because you can't see how deep the water is, how fast that water is. It's hard to have the visibility. So we're going to keep you posted on the numbers and what else we can expect, as we also have an incoming storm that's going to bring some rain and snow tonight and into tomorrow morning. Another concern there.
Yeah, just what we don't need is more water at this point. Well, all over Utah, though, it has been an anxious day for residents and community leaders alike. They're working together to deal with the melting snowpack and try to prevent flooding.
Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser traveled all over Salt Lake and Weber counties today, watching crews and communities do whatever they can to prevent water from getting inside homes.
This might look like a raging river.
This ditch here at most has a trickle in it, especially throughout the drought. It almost dried up.
It's actually Tim Jones's front yard.
I should be out working. I'm frustrated that I can't be out there making money. I even brought my employees in yesterday to help sandbag and paid about $1,000 out of pocket expense.
It's all hands on deck on N Street in North Ogden. Utahns of all ages line the block with sandbags and divert water away from their homes.
My room's downstairs, and I'm wondering how my room's gonna be good.
It's been a non-stop community effort for 2 days now. Construction companies donated sandbags and grocery stores dropped off food.
So during the night, when this thing really surges, after the day's heat, where we'll have to have several hundred people here tonight to manage what's going to take place.
Flood advisories are in place across the state, like Emigration Creek in Salt Lake City. Water overtook the Wasatch Hollow Preserve and Park Playground Wednesday morning and flowed into a few homes.
Salt Lake County Flood Control is working to do an assessment of the retention basin, and we've managed the flows that are coming out of the creek.
Crews cleaned up what they could on East 1700 South. This is what it looked like earlier in the morning. Communities can barely catch a break, and they fear the flooding is far from over.
This could last weeks. You know, who knows when it'll quit.
Just a reminder, never cross a road that's flooded, and if you want to check it out, be very cautious. It's quite a sight to see, but it's very dangerous, and swift water rescue teams advise you to just keep your distance. Reporting in Ogden, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
In Kaysville, a storm drain backup last night caused extensive flooding and erosion of a big part of Orchard Ridge Lane. 25 houses were evacuated as a precaution, but officials say it does not appear any of those homes are damaged.
Utahns are celebrating the warm weather, but so are the least favorite insects here in Utah.
That's right. Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us why flooding could bring about one of the worst mosquito seasons in recent years.
Where there's water, there are mosquitoes.
There's a lot of water out there, so I think everybody's aware. And so with a lot of water comes a lot of potential for mosquitoes. So we're expecting it to be a pretty abundant mosquito season, and we're gearing up for that.
Dr. Greg White says the Salt Lake City mosquito abatement is already getting calls about the insects being active this week.
There are some mosquitoes coming out with this warm weather. There's certain mosquito species that like to hibernate as adults, and when the weather starts to warm up, then they become active.
From backyards to garages and sheds, people might be creating mosquito sites at their homes without even realizing it.
It could be buckets, wheelbarrows, toys. It may be things in the front of your yard, like catch basins, gutters that are full of water. So anything that you can dump out, just dump those out, because they'll start to be great sources for mosquitoes to lay their eggs and develop in and become a mosquito site.
If you see a new area of standing water somewhere that's a source of mosquitoes, you can call your local mosquito abatement district and they will come out to treat it.
When the water's actually deeper, it's better for us. We don't have to treat as much of the water just around the edges, because when it's really deep water, the mosquitoes don't like that.
White says if the wet weather pattern carries over to summer, this could be one of the worst mosquito seasons ever. In Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A new state audit talks about old problems delivering health care to inmates.
They know what the rules are, they just don't want to comply.
But legislators were most concerned about bad information from prison officials.
Their advertising clause right now, how it is unattainable and unrealistic for virtually all events.
A St. George drag show organizer claims the city is applying their special events ordinances unequally. Why the city says the denial of her event was within their rights.
Diabetics not getting insulin on time, medical records tossed in dumpsters, and failing to follow medical standards. They're all problems found in a new audit of health care at Utah's prisons.
And if it sounds familiar, it's because auditors also found those same problems within the last audit. Fox 13 News investigative reporter Nate Carlisle has been reporting on Utah's prisons. Today, he attended the hearing where legislators asked why they had been misled on the prison's progress.
There is a culture of noncompliance.
Non-compliance was a word auditors and legislators used over and over again to describe how the Utah Department of Corrections often willfully fails to provide competent medical care to its 5,000 inmates.
They know what the rules are, they just don't want to comply.
Legislators were briefed on the second audit in 17 months discussing health care at Utah's prisons. While auditors said the Gunnison prison had made progress, the new billion-dollar penitentiary in Salt Lake City is failing on multiple points. There, auditors found again insulin and food were being provided inconsistently to diabetic inmates. Staff often ignored multiple kinds of internal policies or national standards, and auditors again found medical records tossed into a garbage bin where others could find them.
This just speaks to the disregard for the rules and that culture of noncompliance.
And there were new problems, like when auditors discovered the forms inmates filled out to request medical care were being thrown away rather than logged and saved in patient files. But legislators had their most pointed questions when they learned only 4 of 13 recommendations from the previous audit had been implemented. In October, the Department of Corrections told the legislature in writing that it had implemented nearly all the recommendations.
Now I'm questioning what's happening on the rest of corrections.
Obviously, there is much more work that needs to be done in this space.
Corrections Director Brian Nielsen said the incorrect information was because while the department had instituted new policies, they didn't have information about the results.
And I would also acknowledge there were some mistakes in the process on my part, and I'm here to take accountability for that.
Besides trying to ensure recommendations are actually instituted now, Nielsen said Corrections is using new money from the legislature to make improvements. Also, the Utah Department of Health and Human Services began providing medical services to the prison last year.
Deceit is the word that comes to mind in representing that these problems have been solved or that they're solving them.
Wendy Parmley is the Director of Medical and Mental Health at the Utah Prisoner Advocate Network. The discarded, unprocessed request for medical care, especially, is something inmates and families have complained about for years as ailments went untreated.
In leadership expectations, and leadership is responsible for that culture of compliance and accountability.
Legislators also discussed how to better track the Department of Corrections' progress. Republican Senator Evan Vickers, a pharmacist, even asked Nielsen to send him a copy of his pharmacy plan to review. At the state capitol, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Local drag show organizers in St. George are upset tonight after the city council voted 4-1 last night to uphold the denial of a special event permit.
The head organizer feels the city is targeting her events because they involve drag. Before moving to breaking news tonight, Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule caught up with both stakeholders in this heated debate.
Mitski Avalo, CEO of Southern Utah Drag Stars, wanted to host a special all-ages drag event in St. George this April.
There's such a need for a safe space and drag here in Southern Utah.
But the city denied her event on the basis of violation of city advertising ordinance. This, Avalo tried to appeal and was denied.
During this whole process, I was completely aware of this clause that the city of St. George had in their city code that mentioned that advertising was not allowed until city approval and the special event permit issuance.
Avalo says she was given verbal permission by St. George Special Events Coordinator Sarah Reber to advertise before her permit was issued.
My worry was that the city was kind of postponing their signing off on many things just to not allow me to have enough time to advertise for my event. And so I went and asked, I was like, hey, Sarah Reber, can I start advertising? And she said, sure. Now, my biggest mistake was not recording this conversation or having it in writing.
In a signed affidavit, Reber says she did not communicate to any applicant that the applicant was allowed to advertise before the special events permit was issued. Assistant St. George City Attorney Ryan Dooley says the city had the right to deny Avalo's appeal.
The city was on solid legal footing for denying the event because it was clear that they were advertising without having their permit issued and without it being approved.
But Avalo argues numerous events advertised before their special event permit was issued and did not have their event denied.
They actually compiled a list of all events in the past month or so, or the ones that haven't happened yet, that had advertised before their permit approval.
The city has carved out reoccurring and city-sponsored events from the temporary zoning ordinance 2023-03-003 for the 45-day rule and applied the advertising exception to them. New events, thus, are subject to the 45 days and advertising prohibition prior to approval and permit being issued.
Dooley says during the special events moratorium, issues raised by Avalo and others will be addressed, but Avalo is not convinced.
In that city council meeting, they said, oh, we're going to address that issue of advertising. We're going to address the issues that Mitski brought up. But I think they're just kind of saying that their advertising clause right now, how it is unattainable and unrealistic for virtually all events.
Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, coming up, we're tracking this flood warning for Emigration Creek, expected to peak between 10 p.m. and midnight. What to expect overnight, and also we do have an incoming storm, how the rain could impact more flooding concerns.
And we continue to follow breaking news in Salt Lake City, where we are seeing some major flooding. This is a live look at 1700 South, 1500 East, where fast-moving water has forced dozens of homes, 35 to be exact, and about 100 residents to evacuate. We'll have a live update from Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule on scene coming up. Stay with us.
Just last week, we had winter weather. Yesterday, gosh, it was summer-like, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, though, we're headed back to winter.
And one of the big questions is, how is this impacting wildlife? Utah's Weather Authority, Allison Krogan, you've been looking into this.
Yes, that's right. So yesterday I was talking to Mike Lawrence, the lead horticulturist at the Conservation Garden Park, about the cherry blossoms up at the state capitol. Those are running behind schedule and will probably peak in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But during our conversation, he brought up some other topics that I just really felt like I should share with you. I have good news and I have bad news. Let's start with the bad news. Because some of our blooms are running late, he's a little concerned about how that might impact our wildlife in the coming months.
I do wonder how much is going to affect birds who are in, who have their babies in their nest that kind of rely on those things, those fruits kind of blooming at a certain time or fruiting at a certain time, because I think the fruiting is going to have to be late too.
All right, so a little concerned about how that will impact those animals, especially with some of those fruit trees not blossoming until probably June. And then he said that there is some good news, though. While some plants are running late, there is a chance this could lead to a super bloom.
When we get plants that come along for the day length, I think we actually could end up getting some plant combinations we haven't seen blooming together at the same time, because we'll get a big bloom. So all of that early spring bloom will catch up in mid-spring, and we'll have a bunch of blooms that all at once that we don't normally get, which could be kind of cool, actually, a little bit of a super bloom.
When do you think that would be?
Sometime during the next month into late April, we're going to be seeing some really interesting combinations of flowering plants that we don't normally get, which is actually going to be kind of neat.
Yeah, so that super bloom of sorts, if it does happen, Mike said you can visit Conservation Garden Park, which is free to the public, or you can take a stroll around your neighborhood or whatever garden is close to your house. But something to be watching out for as we head into the coming months. Of course, our main story right now, flood warnings for Emigration Creeks. This is going to go down Emigration Canyon, where we have seen some concerns for mudslides, debris in the road from residents. The water's just really running fast right now. Hogle Zoo says they don't have any problems right now. They just posted an update. We're happy about that because this does run right by Hogle Zoo. So this will likely peak though around 10 p.m. to midnight, and it will gradually recede through the early morning hours tomorrow. We're going to be checking in with Darian DeBrule in just a few minutes to get some more live information from where some of that flooding is the worst right now at 1700 South and 1500 East. Through the night, we have rain moving in, potentially some snow tomorrow morning. So let's talk about Salt Lake City first. We're this red line. Starting at about 3 a.m., precipitation is going to return, likely peaking numerous to widespread from about 6 a.m. through 11 a.m. tomorrow. For Ogden, you're the yellow line. You're likely going to see your peak, same time frame, about 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. tomorrow. And then for Provo, you're the blue line. It'll become widely scattered to scattered during the morning drive. Now, of course, the concern is what kind of precipitation are we going to see for our actual commute? And then what will this rainfall do on top of what's already a flooding concern? So, of course, yes, that does potentially complicate things a little bit more. We'll have mid-40s early tomorrow morning for the morning drive. Depending on how much we cool down and the intensity of the precipitation, we could see a wintry mix. And for tomorrow evening's drive, we're expecting more sunshine, but it's going to remain pretty cool throughout the day tomorrow. Already seeing some areas of rain along I-80 in Tooele County and up towards the Idaho border, mainly near I-84 and I-15, right up towards the Tremont area. Southern Utah primarily dry, very windy today here across the state. But I want to show you Futurecast because we're likely going to get the precipitation going after about 2 a.m., some spotty showers becoming more widespread, 6, 7 a.m., starting from the north, moving a little further south. By 9 o'clock in the morning, a wintry mix is possible for our main I-15 corridor, but with how warm that it was yesterday, 83. I have a hard time seeing this really sticking to the roads. Certainly the grassy surfaces, we could see that changeover. And of note, there is still some disagreement in forecast models on how that exactly will play out as far as the precipitation type. Chances through about lunchtime tomorrow, then we see the clearing here along the Wasatch Front. And with the cool down tomorrow, the cool down is actually great news for our flooding concerns because it's hopefully going to help slow down some of that runoff. As we look at temperatures tomorrow morning, 30s and 40s here across the state. Wasatch Front tomorrow, we've got that chance for a transition at times during the morning drive, likely rain and snow. Temperatures then about 40 through much of the day. Throughout the day tomorrow, afternoon hours, precipitation chances for eastern, central, and southwest Utah pretty spotty, and we'll keep some of those lingering through Friday. St. George 71 for tomorrow, 70 on Friday. So you're enjoying the cool down as well. You were close to 90 yesterday. Now you're going to be about 70 for the next couple of days. We will heat up a little bit Sunday and Monday, low 80s for St. George, and then you're back low 70s by next Wednesday. For Salt Lake, mid 40s tomorrow, 50 Friday, 60 Saturday, 70 on Sunday. Nothing in our forecast is as hot as it was yesterday. We'll talk more about potential snow totals coming up in your Super 7 Day Look.
Coming up is Major League Baseball, a possibility in Salt Lake. We'll let you know.
We'll have team coverage on that big announcement.
How infrastructure repairs in the Ogden Bay are helping increase levels at the Great Salt Lake.
If you are just joining us, we want to get you up to speed on breaking news tonight of major flooding happening in Salt Lake City right now.
Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule joins us live at 1700 South and 1500 East in Salt Lake City, where that flooding is happening. Darian.
Bob, Kelly, police tell me that there are man-made dams that are helping to control the flow of water, but this could end up getting worse overnight. Right now, I am here with Salt Lake City resident Tom East. Tom, tell me what you're seeing right now and how you would describe this situation.
Yeah, so, we have some flooding in the streets here. It's kind of flowing down 1700. It's going to probably get a little bit worse here with 800 to 900 inches of snow. It was a pretty bomber skiing year, but we all knew this was coming. A lot of people attribute it to the snow. A lot of people attribute it to the new 9th and 9th whale, but, you know, I think there's a lot more water coming.
Yeah, Tom, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about how 1983, that crazy flood season. I know that we weren't alive then, but are you at all nervous that we could see something similar like that this year? And are you nervous for your own home here in Salt Lake City?
Not too nervous about my house, but as far as the flooding, I think that it's going to be pretty similar. You know, I think there's some better infrastructure in place to prevent it. But at the same time, I mean, we haven't seen a winter like this in over 20 years, so it could get intense.
Thanks, Tom. I have seen residents behind us, residents and volunteers, bringing sandbags to these homes to hopefully prevent any water from getting into them, and we'll have an update later on in the show as well. For now, I'm Ladarian DeBrule, live in Salt Lake City, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Darian, thank you. We'll check in with you again. That water is moving so quickly.
Very, very quickly, and I'd say probably about a foot of water moving in the streets right now in some places. There, 1700 east, 1500 south.
Backwards, the other way.
Yeah,
17th south, 15th east. Be very careful.
Yeah.
Well, Utah right now looking to hit a home run. Today, a group headed by the Miller family announced they want to bring a Major League Baseball team to Salt Lake City.
The MLB is rumored to be soon expanding from 30 teams to 32. One team in the East and another in the West. Could Utah get that extra team here in the West? Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson spoke with former players and fans to get their reaction.
It's a great opportunity for the city, for the state of Utah to be able to pull families together to enjoy, in my opinion, the greatest game that's ever been invented.
Former pro baseball star Vance Law may be somewhat biased, but the West Coast native has seen firsthand how Major League sports, even those other than his own, have brought communities together.
Kind of like back in the late 90s when the Jazz were competing for the championship. That's all people can talk about. And with baseball, we're here. It's just one more opportunity for the community to unify.
Mike and Mandy Bain say going to a game would make for a great family activity.
I love watching baseball. I love going out to the stadium and getting a hot dog and having the kids there with
Our kids enjoy it for sure.
Oh yeah.
Others like Chris Garcia would love if the sport helped show off what Utah has to offer.
Well, we need more tourist attractions. We need more people to come and find out how great our state is.
With several acres opening up on North Temple near the new Rocky Mountain Power headquarters, and with the MLB looking to expand, Law says he is very hopeful a team will make its way to the Utah mountains.
They are going to try to get a couple more teams. 32 would be optimal. So if they actually get doing that, I know we've got the people here that are working hard to try to make it happen, make it come to Salt Lake City.
In Salt Lake City, Lucy Nelson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall is also reacting to the big news.
Today, she released a video on social media directly addressing the residents of the ballpark neighborhood, where people are concerned about what will come next now that the Salt Lake Bees are leaving for daybreak after this season.
The potential of Major League Baseball never factored into our talks with the Miller Group. If it had, I would never make a deal in one neighborhood at the expense of another. We were brought into this massive effort only recently and very much after the Larry H. Miller Group finalized its decision on the Bees.
Mayor Mendenhall says she is looking to make sure the ballpark neighborhood benefits despite losing the Salt Lake Bees and the University of Utah baseball team as regular users of Smith's ballpark. She adds that she is looking forward to seeing what has come of the ballpark next design competition that recently just wrapped up. That competition is part of a $100 million fund from the Miller Family Foundation that will help revitalize the ballpark neighborhood.
A lot of people are working to be sure the water from this year's historic snowpack can actually get to the Great Salt Lake and help the ecosystems that depend on it.
One such project was going on in Ogden Bay today. Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi shows us what the construction looks like and why it really can make a difference.
If we weren't doing this project right now, there's a really good chance we would lose this dike and lose the ability to control all the water at Ogden Bay Waterfowl Management Area.
Going on a boat to look at repairs to a dike that helps move water through 19,000 acres of the Ogden Bay Waterfowl Management Area.
And that is important to the hundreds of thousands of birds on both the spring and fall migrations. And we also are a really important area for nesting. We have a lot of Canada geese, cinnamon teal, gadwall, mallards.
One thing I love about the Great Salt Lake is I think everyone knows about the lake, but they don't always realize that the lake also includes hundreds of thousands of acres of these wetland habitats on the eastern and southern shorelines where the Bear, Weber, and Jordan River flow into the lake.
This dike is a soil slope or ridge which was constructed in the 1930s and has eroded over the years. So Ducks Unlimited stepped in with federal funds to help this construction. Rich Hansen, a manager at the Ogden Bay Waterfowl Management Area, says crews will go about 200 yards more and then pause the project till July because the runoff will make it tricky to work.
There are several dump trucks that are hauling the rock, and we're trying to rebuild the dike back to its original footprint, and then we are riprapping with large rocks to prevent future erosion.
Water from the Ogden Bay comes through this area to feed into the Great Salt Lake. So repairing dikes and the infrastructure helps make it more efficient to convey water to the lake, increasing lake levels during seasonal runoffs. This area of the lake had dried up last fall, and even though there is water now because of this year's historic snowpack, experts say projects like these by Ducks Unlimited and others have to continue because the lake is still in a dire state.
And so it buys us a little bit extra time to implement some of these measures that we need to start saving water and reversing the slow trend of the lake declining every year.
At the Great Salt Lake, I am Maithili Kupi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Coming up, how will the record-breaking snowpack affect the Colorado River and the level of Lake Powell? The answer might surprise you. Well, we've been covering the flooding that's going on right now here in Salt Lake City at 1700 South, 1500 East. We want to let you know that Salt Lake City Fire Department and the Salt Lake City Public Utilities Department are filling sandbags right now at 1700 South, 1700 East, and they need help. They need some volunteers to come and help them fill some sandbags.
Yeah, those sandbags may really save a home tonight, depending on what happens. So if you can, they are there right now. Also, there's an evacuation center set up at the LDS Church Ward House on Roosevelt Avenue in Salt Lake City for anybody who is displaced or if you're feeling fearful as that water is coming down 1700 South. We do have a crew live on scene. We'll be checking in with them throughout the rest of this newscast as well as in QuickCast as well.
Yeah, 35 people or 35 residences have been evacuated in the 1700 South, 1500 East area because of the flooding of Emigration Creek.
I misspoke on that earlier. I apologize. I said 100 homes, 100 residents. It is residents, but 35 homes.
Right.
So a little confusion on that. So
right.
we'll let you know if that number grows. In the meantime, even with a record-breaking snowpack that we have throughout the state, it is nowhere near enough to compensate for the 23 years of the drought that the western U.S. has been dealing with.
The Colorado River Commission and other entities are preparing to respond to an Interior Department analysis released yesterday of two plans to cut water usage along the Colorado River through 2026. One would give priority to senior rights holders, California and Native American tribes, and the other would reduce water allocations more evenly among the 7 states that depend on the river, Utah being one of them.
In my mind, the reductions can't be handled strictly by priority use, because if that's the case, then there would be very little water available for Arizona. If you do it strictly on percentage, then the bigger cuts would be handled in the California regions.
Gene Shawcroft is Utah's Colorado River Commissioner and the General Manager of Central Utah Water Conservancy District. He says the Interior Department analysis allows the lower basin states, California, Arizona, and Nevada, to decide independently how to manage reductions in water use rather than having the federal government dictate that to them.
And I believe it will be somewhere in the middle. I can't see a situation where those who have priority would lose all of their water, nor can I see a scenario where Phoenix or Tucson would be, for the most part, cut off from a water supply. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle.
The Interior Department will take public comment on the two plans and decide what action to take, if any, later this year. Now, to give you some perspective, in terms of this year's runoff, Shawcroft says Lake Powell can hold 24 million acre-feet of water. Right now, it is at 6 million acre-feet of water. He says the net increase from this year's snowmelt will likely be about only 2 million acre-feet. So it'll take several very wet years to bring Lake Powell and all the reservoirs above it on the Colorado River back to pre-drought levels.
Interesting stuff there. Well, coming up, we do have a storm that's moving in from the north. We're going to be cooling down a ton tomorrow, and we also have the chance for a pretty slick morning drive. More on that coming up, and of course, the latest on the flooding concerns.
And coming up from sports, we'll hear from top Jags executives Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck as they get ready for a busy offseason. And we'll have more on the possible Major League Baseball coming to Salt Lake City. We'll hear from the team that's trying to bring a team to Utah.
We have more breaking news at this hour. Unified Fire is reporting a structure fire in Magna at 7811 West, 2100 South, but they say a storage vat. They did not explain what that was, but a storage vat with an unknown substance was burning. Crews were able to knock it down. There is no immediate threat to anything else as far as we understand, and an investigation into this fire is now underway.
And continuing our breaking news coverage on the flooding, there is more flooding happening in and around Immigration Canyon right now. A viewer tells Fox 13 News they can see this happening right outside their window. You can hear that rushing water. Earlier today, Hogle Zoo held their first ever flood drill. Staff members put together 300 sandbags in secured areas that would be at the biggest risk of flooding. They even identified an area to divert and redirect potential flood water. The zoo has also installed a camera to keep an eye on the culvert and water flow. The little shed you see there, right there, it also monitors the flow of the water.
Sounds like they're prepared, as we do have those flood warnings running down from Immigration Canyon into the Salt Lake Valley. As you were just hearing, this Immigration Creek is likely going to peak 10 p.m. to midnight tonight, and this will gradually recede through the early morning hours tomorrow. We also have some rain in the forecast, but the best news is we've got a major cool down expected throughout the day tomorrow, and that is going to help slow down the snow melt. But what we're watching right now, areas of rain near the Idaho border, western Box Elder and Tooele counties. Dry for the most part across southern and eastern Utah. A few sprinkles towards Green River and I-70, but we'll talk about what to expect for the morning drive, because there's a chance that we have a very slick morning drive, especially near the Idaho border and the northern Wasatch Front. So 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, 30s and 40s here across the state. Throughout the day tomorrow, chances for rain mainly into eastern Utah, but daytime temperatures mainly staying in the 40s for much of Utah. So you'll notice a really big cool down. For Ogden, precipitation is likely tomorrow initially. Rain, potentially seeing that transition during the morning commute to a wintry mix. There is a chance that you see a full transition or you see a mix. Or depending on where you are lower along the Wasatch Front down into Utah County, you might end up with just chances for rain. Maybe a few flurries here or there. It really depends on how much we cool down with this. And of course, it was so warm the last couple of days that this is going to have a hard time sticking to the roads unless the intensity overwhelms. And we see that transitioning to a very cold mix with a slush on the roads. For St. George, you've got some isolated chances mainly Thursday night, but not a great chance. As far as what we're looking at, as far as potential snow totals go from now through tomorrow night, mainly a dusting, mainly grassy surfaces. Roads could become slushy at times, though, especially for the northern Wasatch Front. Getting into the Thursday morning drive, we're mainly looking at 1 to 3 inches of snow across northern Utah. And for St. George, 71 tomorrow, 70 on Friday, close to 75 to 80 this weekend. For Salt Lake, we're going to have a steady warm up, which can be good. We want to get the low elevation snowmelt going. We don't want another day in the mid 80s. Tomorrow, mid 40s, 40 degrees colder than it was yesterday. 51 on Friday, Nice weather this weekend, and then we do cool down again next week, which is going to be good, so we can have a reasonable snow melt, and our 2-week temperature outlook returns below average.
This offseason will be big for the Utah Jazz. They could have more than $30 million in cap space plus 3 first-round draft picks after not having a single pick last year. Top executives Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck say they're ready to make this team better this offseason.
This is going to be fun. A lot more draft picks, more money to spend. Yeah, shopping spree. Yeah, this will be more fun, much more fun than last year.
We got to find out a lot of different things about our players, things that we really needed to know as we continue to try to open up a championship window. The optionality that we've created with the roster, just the possibilities are endless. And there's just multiple ways for us to continue to move forward with this team and continue to try to open that championship window.
Well, there was big league news today. Could a Major League Baseball team come to Salt Lake City in the future? The Larry H. Miller Company made that announcement today at Rocky Mountain Power on North Temple, where the stadium will be built. Fox 13's Morgan Vance was there.
As Gail Miller herself said,
it's not a done deal.
And yet there was optimism all over the place underneath this tent.
This story started a year ago. We had the chance to be in New York and meet with the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And in that meeting, we registered our formal interest in having Salt Lake considered as an expansion market.
From politicians to executives, baseball greats, and of course, led by the Miller Group themselves, all teaming up to form a coalition called Big League Utah.
Baseball truly is global. And so it's exciting to think that that global game could be right here in a major way in a very short amount of time.
The MLB rumored to soon be expanding from 30 to 32, one team in the East and another in the West.
And it only makes sense that Utah is on deck to become that expansion team.
Despite their association with the Jazz, Gail and the Millers have always been a baseball family. Keyword, family.
Major League Baseball is considered the most family-friendly professional sports option, and we are all about families.
And the question's been asked, can we have both a AAA team and a Major League team in the same market? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. There are 5 other markets that have both a AAA team close to their parent organization.
Expect competition. The city of Portland, for one, is also in play to pursue potential expansion. So there's still plenty of work to be done.
We have reason to believe that we are a very viable candidate city and candidate market.
Of course, it helps to have a name like Dale Murphy on your side, not to mention land. And thanks to Rocky Mountain Power, another key piece to the puzzle has fallen into place.
We have unmatched outdoor recreation with 5 national parks and 45 state parks. And now it's time to add one more park to that list, a Major League ballpark.
Morgan Vance, Fox 13 Sports.
Yeah, exciting news. We'll be right back.
Just been talking about the flooding in Salt Lake City. An update coming up in QuickCast.
Stick around.